TJ Larkin here today with Amy Vartenuk, who runs Clevelandish, a newsletter for the entire city of Cleveland. And she's a really smart operator. I've been talking to her for a while and love learning from her. So hopefully you will as well. You should definitely stick around. She's going to have a lot of great insights for us. So thanks for being here, Amy.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely. So give everybody a quick overview of your background, maybe a little bit about, what led you to this, and then, then the basics, when you started and, where you're at today.
Yeah, it's a long story. The short version is I was an entrepreneur. I spent about a decade running my own successful home staging business in Northeast Ohio. I had gotten to a point where I was looking for something new, something different, and my back had given out on me. And it was one of those times where like, gotta pivot. And out of the sky came a job offer that has led to Clevelandish. And so we're kind of a unique situation. Rather than me being the founder, I am the creator, but this is being funded by somebody who hired me to run it. So it's a really unique situation that is actually working extremely well. My boss, John, is a serial entrepreneur himself. And this was a project that he came up with thinking like, this would be a great idea. I just don't have the time to run it. So I want to hire somebody else who will take the whole thing and run with it. And so I basically operate as the founder, even though the money is flowing from elsewhere.
I love it. I think this is such a smart model. I talked to somebody who else was doing this recently on the show in I believe it's pretty similar in Kansas City. But I do think this is going to be a more common model. This is what I push a lot, that the people who should own these things are generally more like John. Now, he's actually, super successful, maybe more so than generally the type of people who I'm thinking. But so this will be a great one for everybody who's to kind of confirm or get her take from that perspective that I think is a big play, which is, owning it as a local business owner, and then having somebody who can focus on it full time. Now, I think the hardest part of that model is finding somebody as good as Amy. So obviously, John got that one solved. That's not simple, but no, that's a great background. So, and to be clear, John owns, is it a plumbing company or?
Yeah, it's called Wilson Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electric. He is a third generation entrepreneur. His grandfather launched the business with, it's the classic Rust Belt story. He launched the business with $99 in a pickup truck, and they built it over 3 generations. And John is the one who really exploded this business into, last I checked, I believe it was over a $30 million company. And he now has another podcast that's doing incredibly well. And that has just absolutely blown up. And that's what gave him the idea of we should be focusing on digital media.
Well, I love that you said, I almost totally forgot. Of course, the reason John is relatively well known, quite well known, is that he has a massive podcast for home service business owners. So essentially, the model that we're doing here, he's been doing for years and years, more in a different niche, right? The B2B home service owners, but he gets the value of a media property because he has a podcast, he has a newsletter. I know his newsletter about that podcast is very successful, right?
Very.
And I think he even told me he's launched some more newsletters, right? That was a while ago. He told me, but that I'm talking not local, other kind of B2B things.
Yeah, very, very B2B focused.
Yes. And again, even though there's a local podcast, I tell people all the time, if you are in a business niche that is undercovered, you should probably think about starting a media brand in that business. But anyway, we'll keep it to local here. So John is super smart. He gets it. He's in the newsletter space, media space, and sees the value of local. And so brought on Amy, which is awesome. So so that led you, so he found you, however, which he should tell me so I can find my own.
It was a job posting. It was a traditional job posting. Yeah. Okay. It took him a while to dial it in to find the right person. He was finding journalists at first, and that wasn't the right vibe.
That's not, exactly. Okay. So sometimes it's just the grind work of just keep posting ads, interviewing until you find it. That's usually the answer.
And creating, I think, a job posting that is really enticing to the right person. Which was me.
Totally. Yeah. No, that's awesome. So when did you guys start?
We started, I was hired at the end of February 2025. We launched the newsletter, I want to say the middle of March. So yeah, it's been about 10 months and it's been a wild ride. A lot of things that we expected to happen didn't, and things that we didn't expect to happen did. And you know how it goes. So
of course, well, I'm excited to dig into what those things are. Where are you guys at, like numbers wise?
So at the moment, we have 33,000 email subscribers. We're creeping up on 27,000 social media followers
Oh, wow.
across 3 different platforms. So we've got TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yeah.
And I am focusing this coming year on building on YouTube as well. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that even with that many subscribers, we've still managed to keep our open rates really high and our click rates really healthy. And that's just been huge. That's been something that I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do as the list has grown, and we really have. So that's amazing.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm sure some people are listening to this, 10 months, 33,000. Obviously they put a lot of money behind the growth. Again, I mean, basically doing what I'm obviously helping you now, but like, you guys did what everybody else is doing, right? You're just doing it via meta ads. I mean, you're doing the other stuff, you didn't do anything unique other than put more money into it, essentially.
That's exactly it. Yeah. We had enough money to be able to put into it. We had the right kind of ad, and it helps that it's something that's really needed and desired in the area. So it's a real easy sell on Facebook ads.
Totally. But the other key component I think about you guys that's generally different than probably most people listening to this is you're in a massive city, right? So your audience size is huge. And that does help a lot. I mean, of course you have, but the downside of that is you have a lot more competition, right? So the bigger the city, the more, although maybe Cleveland's kind of one of those big cities that probably has less competition than most other big cities, but you're still going to have more than a small town. Really?
Yeah, it's an odd culture here. It's Rust Belt town, post-industrial, so there's a lot of odd nuance culturally in the area that means that our readers are really looking for something to make them remember why they love their home. There are a lot of other newsletters and the social channels and things like that, but they mostly talk about hip, local, recent, very current food, mostly on social, or the newsletters are mostly news, events, and they're very traditional media company, very bro energy, lots of like blue and black branding. It's a lot of the same thing over and over again. And we're doing something different that's really more for a different subset of people who are looking to fall in love with their home, people who are looking for positivity in their inbox, and people who just want to feel connected to the area in a different way that nobody else is doing yet.
Well, yeah, let's get into that. So tell me, tell me that vibe or how you would say like the big picture of what you're doing different. Because I think not only are you doing different from, maybe what the competitors in Cleveland are doing, but you're kind of doing it different than a lot of people who are doing this. So yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and most of this has come from data. So we've polled our audience constantly from the beginning, and I have a lot of information and a lot of feedback, and we always encourage people to reply to us. So every choice that I've made along the way has been based on data. And one of the things that I kept seeing over and over again when I asked people what they wanted more of was they wanted more personal stuff. They wanted more of my opinion. Because when we first started, it was Clevelandish. It was Amy and the Clevelandish crew. And it was this like generic, group of people, but it really was just me, and it felt disingenuous. And I was like, okay, well, I can kind of tone this down over time, but this is working for now. And as I did these polls, everybody's like, we want to know what you're doing, what your opinion is. We want to know where you went, what you ate, what you liked. We want the weird stuff that you are interested in, like the weird, quirky history and those kind of articles. So as the months went on, I kept shifting what we were doing so that it reflected what people were wanting, which, that's the great way to go about things. But it ended up resulting in a very different animal than other local newsletters. And one of the reasons I did that on top of the polling is that people were really just looking for something amazing. They didn't really care if it was, specifically events, if it was specifically news, like so many other newsletters have been. They liked the vibe, I think, more than anything else. And they liked the idea that this was somebody who is from the area, who knows the area up and down, who is as passionate about it as they are and wants to love it. And attaching that personality along the way was really key. But also, I'm doing about 3 to 5 different people's jobs with the way that we're running this and how fast we want to grow it. And I do not have time to attend every event, to send out an email multiple times a week that has current local events and news stories and all of that really timely stuff. That
Mm-hmm.
that is not possible. It's just not possible with how many hours there are in the day and how many other things that I'm doing and managing. And so for those two reasons, as time went on, this turned into something that feels a lot more like a personal blog. It's very chatty, it's very friendly, it's very focused on me, which is not something that we plan to continue forever. I will eventually, once we can hire people, I'll start phasing in other personalities. So it'll still be very friendly and very personality based. It just won't be about, me,
Mm-hmm.
because long term, who knows what will happen to this and where it will go and what I'll need to be doing. So I'm trying to make it a very flexible product that doesn't burn me out over time, because, we were how John was looking for somebody to run it. One of the key things that you need to consider if you're looking for somebody to run your newsletter is they're going to stick around. You do not want somebody who's going to create it around their personality and then peace out.
Yeah. No, that's
Very
super interesting. Yeah. And I think what you're describing, I would almost put it as really following a similar playbook to what I've been talking about a lot lately, which is the creator model, right? Like this is becoming very popular right now. Everybody knows about the creator model, the Mr. Beast, the like national stuff. B2B is starting to figure out the creator side. I mean, John's one of the leaders of that side of things. This is becoming very common in B2B. I just don't think it's really funneled down locally, at least not to media companies, because there actually are a lot of people doing this stuff, whether it's on Instagram or people having an actual like website blog and that's it. It's the people locally aren't doing it well generally, in my opinion, as a brand, right? It's like it's a brand that is very directly tied to you and your personality and that creator mindset, that's literally what I propose. So that people should be doing. And I love that. And, one obvious reason just straight off the bat is AI, right? It's like AI is coming very, very fast. There is no chance AI can replace an Amy, but it can replace here's some news and here's some events.
That's exactly it. That was one of the things I was thinking about as I'm building this is, how do I make this sustainable so that it lives through AI
Mm-hmm.
and so that it isn't just replaceable and generic and it is valuable over time to the readers and to the owner and to me and to everybody involved. And I think, this is something that came naturally to me after spending a decade running my own business, because not only was I running my own local service-based business, but I was also teaching home staging online, and I had a huge following on TikTok. And those are things that I learned to do through this exact method. I became the creator persona and built that up over time, and I saw how much people reacted to that. And it took me 10 years to get good at it and to get used to the idea, because I am a massive introvert, strangely enough, but I've found ways to make it work. And I saw over the years how much people are hungry for real human connection. And people don't see their loved ones often enough. They feel disconnected from the world. Legacy media just spits information at them, and everybody is just like yearning for real human connection. And so if you can find a way to either genuinely supply it or even come close to synthesizing it in some way, then you're going to win.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I think it's super cool. And I also think it's funny. I hadn't really realized how much you're kind of doing the playbook that I support, even though you and I talk a bunch, but you are. And the reason is what you just hinted at is like, okay, right now, it is all about you. It's just you, your opinions and whatnot as the creator, let's say. But the fact that you guys have a brand, which is called Clevelandish, right? And like, that's the big brand. When you grow bigger, for whatever reason, you want to bring in another creator, you can have 2 creators under this umbrella brand. You could have 5 creators under this brand, right? And that's where I think this gets so exciting for people doing this the right way, like you is, yes, it is very, very much personality driven. You are incorporating yourself in there all the ways you've talked about, but that doesn't mean it has to be you 100% in everything. It just means most likely, if somebody else, if you want to have another creator, just have them have their own creator voice. And then everything is like, well, here, this section of the newsletter was written by Amy, and the next one was written by Joe, and he's a different creator, right? And I think that is the big
something like this. I did something like this with my old businesses, which is why I
Okay.
knew it was going to work. I had a business partner and a couple stagers working for me, and our social media was so huge that I needed help with it. I needed help posting, and I needed
Mm,
other faces because I just didn't have time to be creating enough content. And we created this sort of round robin thing, and people loved it. People absolutely loved it. They felt like they knew us. They knew our names. That, when we showed up at their house to do a home staging walkthrough, they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's you. I know you from social media." It gives you this like level of street cred while
mm-hmm.
also making people feel like they know you and you're approachable, and it makes it more personal. And
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe that it worked. It was a move of desperation at the time.
Yeah.
And now that I know that it works, I'm definitely going to be that's the long-term plan, is to implement
Mm-hmm.
it over time and morph Clevelandish into whatever it ends up being based on the talent that we can find.
On creators, essentially like local creators. You're just the first one.
Yes.
But I mean, you're describing it. Just again, we can just hit on, everybody knows AI, but like you need to think deeply about this, that it already works, or it was working before for you. It's working now. That was in a world where people mostly trusted what they were reading was like a person or whatever. We are now already today, for those who are smart enough, and regular people will know probably by the end of 2026 that you cannot trust anything, right? And
Yep.
so because of that, people are going to start latching on to people slash creators even more. And that's what I think a lot of the world, especially let's say on the B2B side and stuff, is starting to figure out, is like, this already works and matters, but it's about to be even more so. Because I mean, I made a song yesterday on a bunch actually, because it takes literally a minute to make a song on Suno. It was so good. I'm like, I actually want this in my playlist. And with this, you can barely tell it all, but the little bit that I could tell, which honestly I can't even confirm for sure, but kind of, I listen to my Spotify now, like what they recommend to me, and I can hear the like, it's AI, right? Like, so my Spotify playlist has a bunch of AI artists on it, and like, it's crazy, like that. And I don't know, and I'm in the space, I'm in this every day, and like I can't figure it
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
So people are going to gravitate to people like you, and
Yeah. And
I think
even,
that's a good thing.
some people are like, "Oh, well, AI is going to get so smart, we're not going to be able to tell the difference." I mean, maybe eventually,
You,
but I don't think that's imminent, because even when we think we don't know, our subconscious knows there's something off, there's something wrong, there's something that doesn't quite fit, and you just don't get the same emotional resonance, especially when
yes,
somebody's speaking with body
yes.
language and like micro expressions and things like that. We pick up on that stuff, and that's
Even in writing, but that's where I think
yeah,
the your angle at things, like, I mean, I guess you could tell AI, like, have a perspective on writing about Cleveland's South Side. Like, that's not going to work. It just won't. Like, and it won't work for real. It might get a little bit better, but I don't see that ever really being a thing.
yeah,
So I'm not super worried about that. But I just think what you're doing is the right play big picture. And I think it's really cool. I think more people should be thinking about this creator with a brand that's not the creator, and then the ability to bring in more creators. If some people may not. If you're in a town of 70,000, maybe it's gonna be you forever. But like,
yeah. I
you
mean,
might as well prepare.
our greater metropolitan area sprawls at like 3 million or
Yeah,
something like that. The actual
crazy.
city is less than that, but
Yeah.
because we're Cleveland-ish, it's one of those like underpopulated for the size of city because of the Rust Belt post-industrial thing. So
Hmm.
we've got that sprawl, and because we don't have any other huge cities in the area, pretty much everyone in Northeast Ohio relates to Cleveland as like the
Mm,
home base, the central,
interesting.
and so Cleveland-ish allows us to expand to all of
You're
Northeast
Yeah.
Ohio. It
Yeah.
mostly appeals to people in Cleveland, but we're covering things in, Akron, which is about an hour south, and a little bit in Youngstown, which is about an hour east, and it really expands what we can cover and how many people we can reach and connect with, and that has been huge.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, that is one of the things that, the covering the big city, there is so many advantages for stuff like that, and being able to get subscribers easier. So
Yeah,
it does make me a little jealous about
yeah, sorry.
that.
Can't help you with that one.
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, no. Okay. So let's talk about social media, because I know you maybe have some interesting thoughts there. Maybe just kind of tell everybody. So you said you have 27,000 between the three channels. So I would say, for where you are, I mean, that's definitely good. It's not like amazing, right? It's like, but it's
Right.
good. It's solid. It's real. How do you think about social media? Well, maybe what type of content have you done? What have you seen work, not work? How do you think about it?
Yeah, that's another that's a really crazy thing that we didn't expect, or I specifically didn't expect, is that um I spent a lot of time and energy in 2025 building up our social media, and then realizing that I don't know that I would call it a waste of time, but nearly. Because, okay, cool, we've got 27K across platforms. That means each one is between 7 and 9-ish thousand. And it it lends us an air of legitimacy. So, when we're running that Facebook ad, when we're running those meta ads, then people are like, "Oh, well, what's this all about?" They click through to our Instagram and they're like, "Oh, this is legit. I'm going to subscribe." Same thing with advertisers. When we're reaching out to advertisers on, Instagram DMs especially, then they see, "Oh, this is a legitimate business with an active following and they're engaged." And okay, so for that reason, it's all been worth it. That's great. However, our original intention was to be selling ad space on social media as well and to have that lead to income. And we did not see that happen. Every single advertiser that we talked to was like, "Yeah, I don't care about the social media stuff. So anyway, email newsletter. We want ad placement in the email newsletter." And I was like, why am I spending all of this time and energy to build these social channels that aren't going to lead to revenue? So I pulled the plug on that. I mean, I practically stopped posting for a while and really kind of pivoted over to the just really dialing in the email newsletter and making it as good as possible. As far as things that have worked really well, though, I have seen series do extremely well. And again, it's when I inject real world feelings. It's when I inject my personality and my opinion. And so I started creating social posts where I take people along with me. So rather than me being like, "I'm the expert and I'm here and I'm going to present this place to you as if I am an expert on it," it's more like, "Hey, I've never been here. Come along with me. I'm going to check it out." And I started doing videos, especially on TikTok, called Northeast Ohio Mystery Meals. So I
Okay.
take suggestions. In our email welcome sequence, we ask people, "What's your favorite place to eat in the area?" And so I get all of these replies from people telling me their favorite place in the area, and I get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And I'm like, well, this is cool because now my deliverability is good and I've got a good rating with Google because people are replying to me. But what am I going to do with this information? I can't go to all of these places. How do I make people feel like I care, like this
Mhm.
matters? And so I started pulling those and putting them in a hat and drawing out of the hat. And then I go wherever somebody sends me, I show the screenshot of the person, the first name of the person who recommended the place, and I celebrate them in the video. And then I just take them for a ride along. And that blew up. People love that. And
Wow.
so I'm planning on pivoting to YouTube in 2026. I think that's one, social platform, depending on how you look at it, that is absolutely worth the time and energy because it's discoverable, it lasts long term, it's evergreen, and it's just a little bit longer format. So if you think about time on brand, how much people spend with you, the brand, based on the content that you're serving them, okay, they're going to scan an email, it'll be a few minutes, maybe that happens a few times a week. They're going to see your little 20-second reels come by or your minute-long reel. And let's say they watch 7 of those in a week. Okay, cool. They've spent 7 minutes with you and your brand. If you create a YouTube video that is 10 to
Mhm.
20 minutes long, any kind of long form means they're spending exponentially more time with your brand and they get to know you, they start to trust you. And so I'm going to be pivoting that same concept and that same series over to YouTube. And I have high hopes. I think that's going to go really well.
That's really cool. First of all, yeah, I've never heard of anybody doing this. This sounds really cool. I like it. Did you say you take the person like physically with you? Or you just go where you got the card?
I take them emotionally with
You
me.
take them
So
emotionally. Okay. Okay. Well,
yeah.
maybe that would be an interesting one is to take them personally. You try that
I
too.
do occasionally have guests with me that ride
Oh,
along
okay.
with me, and that's been fun
Okay.
too. And that's
Yeah.
something that I can see turning into like taking some movers and shakers from the area, putting them in my car and saying, "Let's do a little ride along." We both get some publicity and it's very
Hmm.
humanizing. Because,
Yes.
watching like a high power attorney from the area that everybody knows from billboards or something tasting a burger and being like, "Oh my God, this is so good." Like that's insanely humanizing. That's valuable to us, to the
That is
brand, to the
really
to the
that
viewers.
is really an interesting idea. This is something I've been thinking a lot. I don't know if you saw. I think it was my episode with Nate, the guy in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
who's crushing it. And I think
Yeah.
he's doing stuff like this of really thinking, how can you make highly engaging, connecting with the audience type of content? I know it's working for him, and it clearly sounds like that's what you're doing too. And
Definitely.
it makes so much logical sense. I think the obvious answer of why aren't more people doing this is just it's hard, right? It's like time consuming.
Yeah, well, and it takes a specific set of skills and experience, I think. But once you nail those things, this is actually easier than creating a lot of other kinds of content
Mm.
because it's just reaction content. I don't have to script anything. I
Yeah.
don't have to plan anything.
Hmm.
All I do is get in my car. I have a hat with the suggestions that just hangs out in my car. And let's say I'm going to meetings or I'm going to a Rotary meeting or I'm like meeting up with a potential advertiser. And then I'm like, oh, I have an hour. I'm going to pull a name out of a hat and go somewhere and record a video while I do it. And I've got a format that I do every time so that it's formulaic but not scripted, so I don't have to think about it. And I find that it's a lot easier to create content, but you have to be comfortable on camera, which only comes from practice or egregious amounts of confidence that I and most people do not have.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things when it comes to social media, there's no replacement for just repetition and practice because that
I mean,
human element
100%.
that
Well,
matters.
yeah.
If you can't be relaxed enough on camera, then you're not going to connect with people.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the first thing that I think of the difficulty of what you're describing is like, other than bringing someone with you with a camera, how are you dealing with the camera? That always, I think I shut these ideas down the second. Like, I can't just like hold it here. I don't know. Or is that
Yeah.
what you do? Or
Well, it developed over time into just some really simple, elegant solutions. I've got, a cradle in my car that I just pop
Mhm,
my phone into and I talk to the phone. And
mhm.
for now, I don't plan on doing even really higher quality for YouTube. I'm just going to turn
Me-
it sideways. I've got a great phone, great camera, great
mhm.
microphone. And so I start in my car. I use that while I'm in my car, and then I drive to the place. I get out, and then I'm just showing them from my perspective what I'm seeing as I'm walking in, what the restaurant looks like. I always make sure that I'm reaching out for the door handle and opening the door so that they can see it, so they feel like they're walking in with me. And then it's just a matter of, I'm taking aesthetic footage, but then I'm also taking some aesthetic footage of my actual meal before I'm eating it. And then most of the time, honestly, I prop my phone up on my glass of water or beer or whatever it happens to
Oh
be.
wow, just
And
super.
I just take
Yeah.
tastes and react. But as long as, you're framing the shot decently and as long as you're mixing in those aesthetic
Mhm.
pieces of footage, it feels great and it makes it feel more real. I think so many people
Oh
think
yeah.
everything has to be hyper polished to do well. And,
No.
on that same vein of AI, us feeling like it's not real and human, the more polished it is, the less people trust it these
Oh
days.
yeah. Well, that's why on meta ads it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We tried an ad that was it looked so good. I like saw it and I loved it. It was from an AI created. It was so good. And of course it
Yeah.
doesn't work. Why?
Yep.
Because it's so good. It looks like an ad and then people just skip
Yeah.
ads, right? So
They really do.
and again, it's only going to become more true over time, right? As
Yeah.
people are going to want the more human, the more mistakes, I even a year ago remember people saying like in your writing, purposely make mistakes. Like
Whoa.
every paragraph, make one mistake. Right. I know it's like, but
It
it's like,
kills
well,
me.
then people will believe it's real. But of
But
course
it's true. Yeah.
but you can go, I did this at the time a year ago. I went into my custom GPT and I said, please make an error every paragraph, one error. And it did it perfectly, perfectly
Oh,
wrong. But,
man.
so even that doesn't work. Um, no, I love this. This is really interesting. One thing I just want to hit on a little bit. I don't know if you saw I made a little episode of just me talking about this and again, John's not here, but I'm curious and maybe you could take it back to him. I'd love his take, but John probably knows a guy named Cole Simpson. Do you know Cole Simpson?
Don't know
He's
me.
a roofer. He's big on Twitter, and he has started a YouTube channel for his roofing brand, and he is like crushing it, crushing. I think he has
That's awesome.
100,000 followers maybe now or
Nice.
subscribers in like 6 months. Now, and he's doing some really unique stuff related to roofing, right? So he's like doing generally like this kind of really engaging, fun type of content that's common, and then trying to incorporate the roofing stuff too. Sometimes he gave away a roof and it got tons of attention, and like
But
there's just a lot of interesting things. I wonder if you and John should like talk about this a little bit of like I wonder if there's a collab between his company, the plumbing stuff, and what you're doing, if there's some angles there. So anyway, maybe we could talk about that offline. I have some thoughts there, but
yeah,
but just the general concept of make highly engaging content, put it on YouTube. People see it for a long time. They start to feel really close to you. I mean, it's really smart. I love it. Tell me about, so by the way, just so you know, let's be real here, that you said, so a lot of the advertisers don't care about social media. That's not what people are normally saying on here. People are saying they actually like Instagram more than they like the newsletter. So it is weird that like you've had that experience.
That is weird.
Yeah.
I have a few theories.
What are your
I
theories?
think one in particular is that Cleveland is a very old school,
Okay.
insular town.
That makes sense.
People like analog. They like old school. They like simple. And I think some of it is that we're being really smart about what advertisers we're approaching, and they're savvy enough to understand, unlike a lot of other people, that social doesn't have the same return. It's mostly vanity metrics. Again, you're
Yeah.
looking at like, okay, cool, we got lots of views. Did it lead to any action? And I think a lot of that comes down to, again, time on brand and being forced. Social media doesn't feel like an organic, real place to advertise. It feels like an ad. And so you don't get the same kind of response, especially because, if you're watching a reel and you see it, you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. You may or may not remember it. So if it's mostly for awareness, awesome.
Yeah.
But they're not going to click back to your bio. They're not
Yeah.
going to click to the other brand's bio.
Mhm.
A handful of people might, but it doesn't actually result in that many clicks and that much action taken. Whereas if they're already in an email that they can just like click the link and they're there, that's an entire other level of efficiency in advertising that really good established brands understand that matters more. It's also coming directly from a personality to somebody who requested that information rather than like just blasting out into the ether. It's much more targeted, it's much more precise, and it has a much higher return on investment.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the obvious thing here is the good and the bad of algorithms, right? It's like, oh, we have 30,000 followers. It's like, well, somebody pays you for a video, and then Instagram, whenever they put it in front of 200 people, and that's it. It's like where that doesn't, you can't send an email to 30,000 and be like, oh, we only decided to send it to 200. I mean, obviously,
Right.
if you screw up your domain or something, maybe, but like everybody will see it, right? And I also think another really big thing I think about when the value of our newsletter ads, especially compared to maybe when people say, oh, well, why don't I just go do meta ads? Which, by the way, most of them probably don't know how. But even if they did, it's like, well, yeah, meta obviously is more trackable in a lot of ways, and they're not downplaying it at all. But the idea of meta ads is like, you got to get them to stop scrolling, and you have about a quarter of a second to do it, right? Like, and even then, you can't really tell a story per se. I mean, I guess you could, but like that doesn't work. It's very fast. Where in the newsletter, it's like the way we can do it is somebody's reading from top to bottom, and the way you put it, and obviously it depends, but like the brand can write a story. I mean, it's a short one, but it's like it is a story that they can tell on what they want to talk about, knowing that people, again, not everybody, it just flows that people will read it, right?
Yeah, a huge percentage of the list will at least see it. A huge percentage will read it, and a measurable amount of people will take action on it. That's the other thing, is like, somebody runs an ad with us in our email newsletter, and I can show them, this is how many impressions you got, this is how many opens we got, this is how many clicks you actually got. Whereas with social media, I mean, aside from impressions and views, which really barely mean anything, if we're being honest, because an impression, especially I think on TikTok, an impression is like, I don't know what, like 3 seconds or something like that. Like they don't have to have watched the whole thing. They may not have even read the brand name.
Yeah.
Emails are different.
I mean, I do think if you can find those brands who just want, again, because some brands do want awareness, right? Like that is the play, right? They want awareness. And so it can be good for that. But to your point, if you're looking for direct results, like, hey, we want to get the message out about this, we need to sell 60 tickets, we need whatever, like, you want to be doing the newsletter to have more control of who's going to see it, instead of like, again, the pro and the con of the algorithm. Some stuff may crush. You may make a video for an advertiser that had some good hook or something, and you got way more views than, like, more than 30,000. You obviously did better than you could in the newsletter, but that's kind of rare. It's more common to get 300. And so it's like, it's the better bet if you're, to make sure and be consistent. So
I think it's
Um,
also important to consider, are you wasting goodwill with your audience? If you've got a really strong social presence and then you start incorporating ad, even if it doesn't feel
mhm,
like an ad, if it's obviously an ad,
mhm,
then, people don't care. They're going to watch less, they're going to engage less
mhm,
over time. Whereas I think with an email newsletter, people expect advertising,
mhm.
and it's so easy for them to just scroll past what they don't want to read.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a
yeah. That's
lot less
true.
invasive. It's a
That's
lot
true.
less in your face and obnoxious. It doesn't feel unsolicited.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean that makes a lot of sense. Again, we're just like a newspaper would have been. Nobody complained in the 90s that newspapers had ads in them. Like everybody knew
I
that's like how
know.
it works, right?
It's crazy. I think
Yeah.
about that all the time. Like everybody's just like, "Oh, I'm so sick of being advertised to." Well, you were being advertised to constantly before. It was just
Yeah,
in a totally different format, and it was a lot
exactly.
easier for you to ignore.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
totally, totally. Well, tell us about monetization. First of all, it's all you, right? So you're responsible for this part of the business
Yes.
as well. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, give anything you can or want to share about like, yeah, obviously you said you haven't had much success with the social side, but like, what have you had success with? Is there any good insights that you have for people with what you've done or learned?
This is another category where the human element comes in a lot. So what we started with was, we expected that part was going to be a lot easier than it was, to be totally honest.
I think
And
a lot of us do
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And it's a matter of, I think that something John and I were talking about recently is that time really is a factor that
Oh
plays in
yeah,
here.
100%. Time in
So
market. Yep.
yes, time and
Yep.
market. How long have you been around? Are you legitimate? Have people heard of you? Have you proven that you're not just gonna collapse? How much goodwill do you have with the community? How much trust has been built? All those sorts of
Hmm.
things really matter, and you can't speed that up. There's nothing that you
That's
can do
right.
to accelerate that.
Hmm.
But it's also a matter of, we did a lot of trial and error, and we only very recently hit on something that is working pretty well. So I spent a lot of time digging for the right person's email address and sending a really, kind of targeted proposal, and using LinkedIn and things like that to try to get to the decision maker. And that felt like it should work. And it absolutely didn't. I got ghosted. People just get a million emails. They don't know who I am. They don't have any context around it. This is where the social media comes in, because when I started DMing on Instagram, I got much, much better results. And I think that the two biggest reasons are that, number one, our legitimacy is built in because it's coming from the account where they can see we're legitimate. There's a link right there to go to our website. They can see we're engaged. And on the other hand, it also means that we're getting to the decision maker faster with a lot less effort, because the person who is probably making a decision about how to spend the marketing budget is almost definitely plugged into the marketing. And that means that they're plugged into Instagram. So even if it's not the decision maker, they're going to get us to the right person a lot faster. Whereas, just trying to find the vice president of sales on LinkedIn and then emailing them, it's just out of the blue. There's no context, and you may or may not be aiming for the right person. You're not sure. So, DMing on Instagram using a script and just like a lot of cold outreach, just a lot. And then from there, the typical scheduling video calls or meeting in person and having a great pitch deck and pitching our ideas to them. But one thing that we found is that with my particular version of the brand, people don't want the thing that you need on your worst day. They want the thing that you want on your best day.
What
So
do you
they
mean?
don't want to hear about mold remediation. They want to hear about a really cool museum that just opened. They don't want to hear about, snow shoveling services. They want to hear about I don't know, a new restaurant that's opening in the area, or just something very pleasant and happy, because this whole brand has been built around positivity, not, obnoxious toxic positivity, but just genuine
Hmm.
positivity. And so those other ads that a lot of people tend to rely on don't work well in our publication. And I've not come up with an answer to this quite yet for sure, whether or not that's because of the brand, that's because of what people in this particular area are looking for right now, or if that ultimately comes down to something that I'm not seeing. But I think, my sense is that it's the personality of the brand. And I've kind of curated this list of people who they want something happy in their inbox. They want
Mm,
something positive. Um, pet insurance does well because it's, pet things. It's a
yeah,
happy,
that's for
fuzzy
sure.
feeling
Mhm.
thing. Um, experiences do really well. We've got an annual partner that is a big winery and resort, and it's all, it's the fun, luxury, happy things that you do on your birthday or your anniversary, or you take the kids down to see Santa. That did great. Experience-based things do great. So we've started targeting just the brands that we think will do really well because unlike some brands, I'm not just going to take their money. I
Mhm.
need to know that advertising with us is a smart choice for them because I think that's the right move really long term. I don't want I don't want to sign on an annual partner that then gets 15 clicks every time we advertise for them. I want hundreds of clicks so that those advertisers want to come back. They want to commit with us year after year. And so that they can leave us rave reviews that we can tell other brands, hey, we're not messing around. We're getting you great results.
I mean
There's
that,
so
yeah,
they're sick of advertising in like basically nameless magazines that sit in the grocery store that nobody looks at and then throws away. They want to spend their money in places that are actually going to get them results.
totally. I mean, what you're saying, I think makes so much sense in a lot of ways. Obviously, I think that would even be true for even people who aren't as personal in their newsletters as you. That what most of us are doing with curating events and kind of being that more like, hey, what do you actually care about in your community? That experiential type stuff is what will work the best. The downside to that, though, is generally, and I'd love for you to tell me I'm wrong here, is I would just frame it as I think I've said this before, that the ideal advertisers, the type of people that would do the best, get the most engagement from it, are not are kind of the worst advertisers, right? Like restaurants and the people who have
Yeah.
the least amount of money.
Yep.
So I guess it's like, how do you square that circle of like, yeah, you're right, the experiential stuff is ideal, but they also generally don't have money. I guess is what you're trying to do is find the like maybe the much there are many less of them that are kind of higher ticket and maybe like focusing on those instead of just the local restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, we've got ad packages set up for 2026 that are compared to what they're used to paying, very affordable, and compared to what most advertisers pay for newsletters on the high side. So we found a kind of sweet spot because we have a lot of subscribers and a lot of trust built, and so that combination that's working really well for us and our advertisers. And we have the benefit, like you said, of it's a big city, it's a big metropolitan area,
Mm.
and so we have enough businesses, enough restaurants that do have enough money, enough wineries that are big enough. We do have, on top of that, I think there's a lot of things that can be considered a positive luxury expense that aren't just those people that don't have as much money, like med spas and things like that. You don't get Botox on your worst day. You get Botox because you want to look
Mm.
better.
Mm.
So, it's about thinking about it creatively and just testing over time. I did a lot of testing of like, how did this advertiser do? How did this I started with a lot of one-off advertising rather than trying to sign people to packages so that I could, entice them to test us and so that I could test them, is this a good matchup? And over time, I saw that as long as it's not something grimy, dirty, yicky, makes you think of your worst day, it can still work and it can work really well. It doesn't
Mm.
have to be, an ice cream shop. It doesn't have to be that level of dopamine. It can
Yeah.
be, just anything that doesn't evoke negative emotions, I think mostly.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I think this is another example of the benefit you just brought up. I hadn't thought about it, but of being in the bigger metro, this is just another one of the reasons that's a big advantage there. Because again, if you're in a town of 100,000, your options are way more limited, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so you're in a good spot for it. So take advantage of it. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Amy, this has been great. What do you want to leave people with? Is there anywhere you want them to check you out or anything you want them to do?
Clevelandish.com if you want to see what
Okay.
we're up to or if you want to subscribe. And Clevelandish underscore OH for Ohio on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and soon to be YouTube.
Yep.
And I think Yeah, I mean, if you're curious about doing it this way, check it out, see what we're up to,
Mhm.
because it's working really well in a lot of ways, and I think that it's very duplicatable with the right person and with the right setup, and I think that this would have worked even without, John's ability to put money behind it. If I had started this on my own, I still think I would have done it. It just wouldn't have grown quite as fast. I would have been relying more on social and less on paid ads.
Mhm.
And ultimately, we do. I was just looking at where most of our subscribers came from, and it's about 55% came from ads. The rest came from social media and things like that. So
Oh,
we
really?
do
Oh,
have,
wow.
yeah, we do
Okay.
have a lot of organic subscribers. It's been a mix, so it's not. You can't just look at this and be like, oh, I don't have the funds, I can't pull this off. You can. It's just a little bit slower.
Yeah.
And when I started this, I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. So it was a lot of testing to figure out, how can we get to where we are? I think that if you really knew what you were doing, you knew what you wanted to create, this is something that you could launch in the space of 3 or 4 months and have a decent amount of subscribers, even without paid advertising. So don't let that scare you away. But I think the thought that I want to leave everyone with is that you don't have to create, most people get into this because they either see an opportunity for income or they're trying to escape a 9 to 5. They don't want a boss, those kinds of things. Don't create a project that burns you out and makes you miserable that you're stuck in. You have the flexibility to test. Don't just assume that what everybody else is doing is what you have to do too. Do some testing, figure out what works for you, play to your strengths, play to your interests, and see if you can create something that's really sustainable for you as well as everyone else.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's a great way to leave it. Yes. Sustainability is so key, right? You mentioned that at the beginning too. Like you got to make sure you're not burning yourself out, which I think a
For
lot of
sure.
people do. So yeah.
Definitely.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Amy. This has been great.
Yeah, it was
We'll talk
great.
again
Very
soon.
fun.
Bye.
Happy to be here.